The sprawling airport terminal buzzed with the harmonious chaos of travelers embarking on their journeys. Families chattered excitedly, business people reviewed their itineraries, and the steady hum of rolling suitcases filled the air. Amidst this vibrant tapestry, a young boy named Eli clung to the hand of his grandmother, Mabel. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Eli's eyes sparkled with anticipation, his small face pressed against the glass display of a model airplane. Today was his first flight, a milestone he had eagerly awaited. "Mabel, look, it's so big," Eli exclaimed, pointing at the airplane with wide-eyed wonder. Mabel chuckled, her warm smile radiating pride. "Yes, Eli. Soon, you'll be up there, soaring among the clouds." As they made their way through the bustling crowd, Mabel deftly navigated the maze of people, ensuring Eli stayed close. Their boarding passes in hand, they approached the check-in counter. The attendant greeted them with a professional nod, but there was a flicker of impatience in her eyes as she processed their tickets. "Thank you, dear. Enjoy your flight," Mabel said gracefully, handing over their documents. Eli bounced on his heels, eager to explore the airport's myriad of shops and eateries. Mabel, ever the vigilant guardian, kept a watchful eye on him, aware of the mixed emotions that sometimes accompanied their travels. As they passed through the security checkpoint, Eli's curiosity got the better of him. He marveled at the various gadgets and machines, asking endless questions. The security officers smiled at his enthusiasm, but Mabel noticed a subtle tension in the air. A stern-faced woman, Karen, observed them from a distance, her gaze lingering a little too long. "Eli, sweetheart, let's not get distracted," Mabel gently reminded him, leading him away from the conveyor belt. Boarding was announced, and the crowd began to thin as passengers made their way to the gate. Eli tugged at Mabel's sleeve, his excitement palpable. "Grandma, can we go see the plane up close?" Mabel smiled, her heart swelling with affection. "Of course, Eli. Let's go take a walk." They approached the aircraft, a magnificent sight of polished metal and gleaming windows. Passengers began to board, finding their seats and settling in. Eli and Mabel found their seats near the front, where the flight attendants greeted them with polite smiles. Taryn, the stern flight attendant, watched them from the galley, her expression unreadable. As the passengers stowed their belongings and buckled their seatbelts, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, delivering the standard safety briefing. Eli listened intently, mimicking the motions with his small hands, while Mabel watched him with a mixture of amusement and pride. "Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to the safety instructions," the captain announced. "Your safety is our top priority." Karen, standing nearby, leaned towards her colleague and whispered with a hint of sarcasm, "Another flight with youngsters running around. They never listen." For comment, "Don't now," carried an undercurrent of disdain that did not go unnoticed by Mabel. As the plane began to taxi, the engines roaring to life, Eli's excitement was matched only by the gentle tension brewing in the cabin. Once airborne, the seatbelt signs dimmed, and passengers began to relax. Eli retrieved his small toys from his carry-on, spreading them out on the seat in front of him. Mabel engaged in conversation with George, an elderly gentleman seated nearby. They shared stories of past travels and life's lessons, their voices intertwining in a comforting rhythm. George, with his twinkling eyes and hearty laugh, broke the initial tension with a light-hearted joke. "You know, Eli, flying is just like being on the world's biggest roller coaster, except you don't have to get off for your lunch." Eli giggled, the sound infectious, spreading smiles among the nearby passengers. Mabel appreciated these moments of levity, knowing how important they were in fostering a sense of community among strangers. As the flight progressed, the cabin crew began their first round of service. Eli's small hand raised eagerly, requesting a drink. In his excitement, he accidentally knocked over his cup, spilling water across the tray table. Before Mabel could react, Karen swiftly approached, her face contorted in irritation. "Careful, young man. Watch where you're going," Karen snapped, her voice sharp. Eli's eyes welled with tears, and Mabel placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "It's all right, Eli. Accidents happen. Let me help you." Karen's glare intensified, drawing the attention of several passengers. The room seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with unease. George, ever the peacemaker, interjected with a gentle chuckle. Looks like Eli just wanted to make sure everyone around him stays hydrated. His humorous remark broke the tension, eliciting chuckles and easing the discomfort. Karen hesitated, the stern facade momentarily wavering as she realized the impact of her words. Mabel continued to comfort Eli, sharing a warm smile with George. Thank you, George. Sometimes, a little humor is all we need to lighten the mood. As the plane settled into a smooth cruise, the initial excitement of takeoff gave way to the deeper connections forming among the passengers. Eli and Mabel's journey had only just begun, but already, the seeds of unity and understanding were being sown amidst the vast expanse of the sky. The airplane had settled into a steady altitude, the hum of the engines creating a soothing backdrop. Passengers began to relax, some glancing out the windows at the endless expanse of blue below. Eli, now engrossed in his small assortment of toys, giggled as he moved his action figures across the tray table. Mabel sat beside him, her eyes occasionally meeting those of George, who shared stories from his younger days of flying and the lessons he'd learned along the way. As the flight attendants moved down the aisle, offering drinks and snacks, Eli's hand shot up eagerly. "Can I have some juice, please?" he asked, his voice filled with excitement. Mabel nodded approvingly, watching as the attendant approached. But in his enthusiasm, Eli's elbow nudged his cup, sending water spilling across the table. Before Mabel could react, Karen was at his side, her expression tightening. "Careful, young man. Watch where you're going," she snapped, her voice sharp and unforgiving. Eli's eyes filled with tears, and he looked up at Karen with a mixture of fear and confusion. Mabel quickly placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "It's all right, Eli. Accidents happen. Let me help you clean this up." The cabin seemed to hold its breath, the tension thick enough to be felt by everyone present. George, always the peacemaker, leaned forward with a gentle chuckle. "Looks like Eli just wanted to make sure everyone stays hydrated," he remarked, his voice warm and soothing. A ripple of chuckles spread through the nearby passengers, breaking the heavy silence. Karen's stern facade wavered for a moment as she glanced around, realizing the impact of her harsh words. Mabel gave George a grateful smile, appreciating his ability to diffuse the situation with humor. As Eli continued to play with his toys, the initial discomfort began to fade, replaced by a sense of camaraderie among the passengers. George and Mabel shared a knowing glance, recognizing the importance of these small moments in fostering unity. They exchanged stories of times when a little humor had turned a tense situation around, reinforcing the bonds forming within the confined space of the airplane. Meanwhile, Karen retreated to the galley, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. She couldn't shake the unease that had settled over her, nor the realization that her actions had caused more harm than intended. As she prepared another round of drinks, her colleague approached, attempting to lighten the mood. "Tough day dealing with the mighty Eli, huh?" she asked with a sympathetic smile. Karen forced a small smile, the weight of her frustrations momentarily lifted by her co-worker's understanding. "Yeah, he's a handful," she admitted, her voice softer than before. The brief interaction left her contemplating the reasons behind her outburst, the layers of her own experiences and fears bubbling to the surface. Back in the main cabin, the passengers began to settle into a comfortable rhythm. Eli's laughter echoed softly as he engaged in imaginative play, while Mabel continued her heartfelt conversation with George. They shared stories of resilience and the importance of kindness, inspiring those around them to reflect on their own lives and prejudices. A few hours into the flight, the entertainment system flickered to life, displaying a selection of movies and shows. Eli chose a colorful cartoon, his eyes lighting up with delight as animated characters danced across the screen. The laughter from the screen blended seamlessly with the ongoing conversations, creating an atmosphere of lightheartedness and mutual understanding. As the hours passed, the initial excitement of the flight gave way to deeper connections. Passengers from different walks of life found common ground in their shared experiences, their conversations weaving a tapestry of empathy and solidarity. Mabel and George's stories became a beacon of hope, guiding others to look beyond their differences and embrace the humanity they all shared. Karen, still in the galley, found herself reflecting on Mabel's grace and George's humor. She couldn't ignore the growing realization that her own prejudices were barriers she needed to confront. The laughter and warmth emanating from the main cabin reached her, stirring something deep within her, a longing to be part of the unity she had inadvertently disrupted. As the flight continued, the seeds of understanding and compassion took root among the passengers. Eli and Mabel's journey was no longer just about reaching a destination. It had become a catalyst for change, inspiring those around them to challenge their own biases and embrace the diversity that enriched their lives. Amidst the vast skies, the airplane became a microcosm of society, proving that even in the smallest of communities, the power of empathy and humor could overcome the darkest of prejudices. The airplane had been cruising smoothly for several hours, the steady hum of the engines now a comforting presence in the background. Passengers had settled into a rhythm, some engrossed in books, others engaged in quiet conversations. Eli, ever the inquisitive child, was now deeply absorbed in his toys, building intricate structures with his colorful blocks. Mabel sat beside him, her attention divided between nurturing Eli's creativity and engaging in meaningful dialogues with George, the amiable, elderly gentleman. George, with his twinkling eyes and hearty laugh, had become a beloved figure among the passengers. His stories of past travels and life's myriad lessons provided a sense of camaraderie and wisdom. Today, he shared a particularly memorable tale about a flight he took decades ago, where unexpected turbulence led to an impromptu community gathering among strangers. His laughter was infectious, drawing smiles and occasional chuckles from those around him. Meanwhile, Taryn, the stern flight attendant, found herself increasingly isolated. The earlier incident with Eli weighed heavily on her, stirring a maelstrom of emotions she struggled to conceal. She moved through her duties with mechanical precision, her interactions curt and devoid of warmth. The friendly exchanges that had momentarily softened her demeanor were now a distant memory, replaced by a guarded professionalism that kept her at arm's length from the other crew members. As the hours ticked by, the cabin's atmosphere began to shift subtly. Conversations that had once been light and superficial took on deeper, more introspective tones. Passengers shared personal stories of overcoming adversity, tales of resilience that resonated with the collective spirit of the flight. Mabel, inspired by George's openness, began recounting her own experiences with prejudice and the strength she found in kindness and understanding. Back in my day, Mabel began, her voice steady and filled with conviction. I faced my share of challenges, but it was the people around me who taught me the true meaning of community. We stood together, no matter our differences. Her words hung in the air, sparking nods of agreement and appreciative murmurs. The passengers listened intently, their previously held biases slowly melting away in the face of shared humanity. The unity that Mabel and George fostered began to weave a tapestry of empathy and mutual respect among the diverse group. Amidst this growing sense of solidarity, a sudden jolt shook the aircraft. The plane entered a patch of mild turbulence, causing passengers to grip their seats a little tighter. The overhead compartments rattled, and the cabin lights flickered momentarily. Eli's eyes widened with a mix of fear and curiosity, while Mabel offered him a reassuring smile. "Just a little bump, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice calm and soothing. "We're still in control." The turbulence subsided as quickly as it had begun, but the moment served as a reminder of the fragility of their shared journey. Taryn, however, seemed particularly unsettled. Her usually composed exterior was now marred by visible tension, her hands slightly trembling as she attended to her duties. She moved briskly down the aisle, her interactions with passengers laced with an undercurrent of anxiety. During a brief lull in the service, Karen approached the beverage cart, her movements sharp and hurried. She engaged in a terse conversation with a fellow flight attendant, her frustration barely contained. "Another day, another flight full of complications," Karen muttered, her voice tight with irritation. Her colleague, sensing the depth of Karen's distress, attempted to lighten the mood. "Well, At least we have Eli here to keep things interesting, she remarked with a sympathetic smile. Karen couldn't suppress a fleeting smirk, the colleague's comment momentarily piercing through her hardened exterior. Yeah, he certainly knows how to make an impression, she replied, her tone softening just a fraction. Back in the main cabin, Mabel noticed Karen's subdued demeanor and felt a pang of empathy. Understanding that everyone carries their own burdens, she chose not to dwell on the earlier confrontation. Instead, she focused on fostering the growing sense of unity among the passengers, encouraging conversations that bridged gaps and dissolved prejudices. As the flight progressed, the interactions among passengers grew more meaningful. Stories of love, loss, triumph, and transformation flowed freely, creating an atmosphere of shared humanity. Eli's playful antics and innocent questions continued to bring moments of levity, his laughter a balm for any lingering tensions. George, ever the sage, leaned closer to Mabel and whispered, "You know, Mabel, moments like these remind us of the good in people. It's easy to judge, but so much harder to understand and accept." Mabel nodded, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of a life well lived. "Absolutely, George. It's all about seeing beyond the surface and embracing the person within." As the flight journeyed onward, the seeds of understanding and compassion took deeper root among the passengers. The earlier conflict with Karen had not only been a catalyst for tension, but also a starting point for introspection and growth. The airplane, once a mere vessel transporting people from one place to another, had become a microcosm of society, a space where prejudices were challenged and the true essence of humanity was celebrated. Karen, still grappling with her internal struggles, began to notice the subtle shifts around her. The laughter, the shared stories, and the genuine connections forming among passengers stirred something within her. She found herself longing to be part of the unity she had inadvertently disrupted, yearning to shed the layers of prejudice that had defined her interactions for so long. As the hours continued to pass, the cabin's atmosphere remained charged with a blend of introspection and hope. Passengers, now bound by their shared experiences, navigated the rest of the flight with a renewed sense of purpose and understanding. Eli and Mabel, at the heart of this transformative journey, embodied the spirit of resilience and the power of kindness, inspiring those around them to embrace a future built on empathy and mutual respect. The airplane had been cruising steadily through the vast expanse of the sky, a serene voyage marked by the gentle hum of the engines and the soft conversations of its passengers. Inside the cabin, a sense of calm had settled over the diverse group, each individual finding solace in their own way. Eli, the young black child, was now deeply engrossed in his imaginative play, constructing elaborate worlds with his colorful blocks. Mabel sat beside him, her presence a beacon of warmth and strength, while George continued to regale the nearby passengers with tales of his adventurous past. As the hours unfolded, the atmosphere remained peaceful, the earlier tensions seemingly forgotten in the embrace of shared stories and laughter. However, unbeknownst to the passengers, a formidable storm was brewing on the horizon, poised to test the fragile harmony within the confined space of the airplane. Without warning, the plane jolted violently, a sudden drop that sent passengers gripping their seats in alarm. The overhead compartments rattled ominously, and the cabin lights flickered, casting fleeting shadows that danced across the faces of the startled travelers. Eli's laughter ceased abruptly, replaced by wide-eyed fear as he clung tighter to Mabel's hand. "Mabel, what's happening?" he whispered, his voice quivering. Mabel leaned closer, her voice calm and reassuring. "It's just a bit of turbulence, sweetheart. We're still safe up here." But as the turbulence intensified, the reassuring words did little to quell the rising anxiety. The plane was tossed and turned by the fierce winds outside, the once steady flight now a battle against the elements. Passengers exchanged nervous glances, their earlier camaraderie now overshadowed by the palpable fear that gripped the cabin. In the midst of the chaos, Karen, the stern flight attendant, found herself overwhelmed by the escalating crisis. Her usually composed demeanor cracked under the pressure, her hands trembling as she struggled to maintain control. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within her, every gust of wind amplifying her hidden prejudices and fears. As the plane lurched violently, Mabel sprang into action. She moved swiftly, her experience and composure guiding her through the turmoil. "Everyone, please remain calm and follow the safety instructions," she instructed, her voice steady despite the chaos. Her leadership became a beacon of hope, inspiring those around her to stay focused and resilient. Chiron, unable to contain her frustration, lashed out amidst the turmoil. "This is ridiculous. If you all paid more attention, we wouldn't be in this mess." Her voice rose above the roar of the storm, drawing the attention of every passenger. Eli looked up at her, his innocence contrasting sharply with her anger, and tears welled in his eyes once more. The cabin fell into a tense silence, the storm outside mirroring the storm within. Passengers watched in shock as Karen's facade of professionalism crumbled, her outburst revealing the deep-seated prejudices she had long concealed. The unity that had begun to form was now threatened by her breakdown, casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over the flight. But amidst the chaos, another form of unity began to emerge. Passengers who had once been strangers now stood together, their shared fear forging bonds of solidarity. George, ever the wise and compassionate soul, took charge once more. "Let's stay together and support one another," he called out, his voice cutting through the tension. "We're all in this together." Inspired by George's leadership, the passengers began to work collectively, securing their seats and helping those in need. Mabel continued to guide and comfort, her presence a source of unwavering strength. Eli, sensing the shift, managed a small smile, his innocence helping to uplift the spirits around him. As the storm raged on, flashbacks of Karen's past began to surface, revealing the experiences that had shaped her into the woman she was today. Memories of her own encounters with racism and fear flickered through her mind, adding layers to her complex character. These glimpses into her past highlighted the internal battles she faced, the very prejudices she now struggled to control. The turbulence reached its peak, the plane shuddering under the relentless assault of the storm. The passengers held their breath, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and hope. In that critical moment, the collective effort of the passengers and crew became their greatest strength. Together, they navigated the storm, their unity a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Just as suddenly as it had begun, the storm began to subside. The plane steadied, the fierce winds giving way to a calm that felt almost surreal. Passengers exhaled collectively, their hearts still racing from the ordeal. The cabin, once filled with fear and tension, now resonated with a profound sense of relief and accomplishment. Chiron, her emotions laid bare, stood silently for a moment, the weight of her actions pressing heavily upon her. The passengers, having weathered the storm together, looked upon her with a mixture of empathy and understanding. Mabel approached her gently, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We all have our struggles, Karen. It's never too late to seek understanding and change." Karen's eyes met Mabel's, the depths of her regret evident. A flicker of vulnerability crossed her face, the realization of her own biases igniting a spark of transformation. In that moment, the seeds of change were planted, nurtured by the collective strength and compassion of those around her. As the plane continued its journey towards the horizon, the passengers found themselves bound by a shared experience that transcended their differences. The storm had tested their unity, and in overcoming it, they had discovered the true power of empathy and understanding. Eli and Mabel's journey had evolved into a profound lesson on the importance of confronting and overcoming prejudice, a lesson that would resonate long after the plane touched down on solid ground. The hours had passed since the storm had raged outside, leaving the cabin in a state of hushed relief. The plane now glided smoothly through the calm skies, the earlier chaos a distant memory. Inside, the atmosphere was a blend of lingering tension and budding hope. Passengers began to reassess their experiences, the shared ordeal fostering a deeper sense of connection and understanding. Mabel, ever the pillar of strength, noticed Karen lingering near the galley, her expression conflicted. Determined to bridge the widening gap, Mabel rose from her seat and approached her with a gentle smile. "Karen," she began softly, "I know things have been tough up here. We're all feeling the stress of the situation." Karen glanced up, her eyes meeting Mabel's with a mix of frustration and vulnerability. For a moment, the stern facade she had worn so diligently began to crumble. "It's just all this," she gestured vaguely around the cabin. "It's overwhelming." Mabel nodded empathetically, taking a seat beside her. "I understand. Flying can be stressful, and dealing with unexpected challenges only adds to that. But we're all here together, and we can support each other." Eli, sensing the gravity of the moment, looked up from his toys and offered a shy smile. "It's okay, Miss Karen. We can all be friends, right?" Karen's lips twitched, the innocence in Eli's eyes touching a part of her she had long kept hidden. "Yes, Eli. Friends." George, who had been engaged in a quiet conversation with another passenger, noticed the interaction and joined them. "You know, Karen," he began, his voice warm and steady, "sometimes it takes a bit of turbulence to see what's truly important. We've all had our own storms to weather." Karen sighed, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "You're right, George. I guess I've been carrying some heavy baggage with me." Mabel reached out, placing a comforting hand on Karen's arm. "We all have our burdens, but sharing them can lighten the load. Would you like to talk about what's been weighing on you?" Karen hesitated, glancing around the cabin to ensure no one was eavesdropping. Finding a moment of privacy, she took a deep breath. I've had my own experiences that have made me wary and judgmental. I didn't mean to take it out on Eli. I'm sorry." Mabel's eyes softened with understanding. "Acknowledging that is a brave first step, Karen. We're all here to support each other. Maybe sharing your story could help others understand you better." As the conversation unfolded, passengers began to take notice, their earlier reservations giving way to curiosity and empathy. George chimed in, "You know, sharing our stories is how we connect and grow. It's never too late to seek understanding and change." Eli, ever the beacon of innocence, piped up with a playful grin, "Yeah, and maybe we can all share our favorite jokes to make everyone smile." A ripple of laughter spread through the cabin, the tension easing as passengers embraced the opportunity for genuine connection. Karen managed a small smile, the warmth of the moment beginning to thaw her guarded demeanor. "I'd like that, Eli. I'd like that very much." Mabel, sensing the shift, decided to take a more active role in fostering resolution. She stood and addressed the cabin with a gentle authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we've all experienced moments of tension and misunderstanding today. But we've also seen the incredible strength that comes from unity and compassion. Let's continue to support one another and build on the connections we've made." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring a collective sense of purpose among the passengers. Conversations flowed more freely, stories were shared, and laughter became a common thread binding everyone together. The flight attendants, led by the lead attendant, began organizing small group activities to further encourage interaction and mutual support. Karen, now more relaxed, joined a group discussing their favorite travel memories. She shared a humorous anecdote about a time she had accidentally boarded the wrong flight, eliciting chuckles and easing her own lingering insecurities. The act of sharing not only humanized her, but also opened the door for others to share their own vulnerabilities. As the flight progressed, the initial incident with Eli became a catalyst for profound transformation. Passengers who had once been strangers now stood united by their shared experiences and newfound understanding. The cabin, once a space of potential conflict, had evolved into a community of empathy and respect. In a quiet corner, Mabel and George continued their heartfelt conversations, their wisdom guiding others towards deeper reflections. Eli, sensing the positive energy, ran around the cabin with his toys, his laughter a constant reminder of the innocence and purity that could bridge even the widest divides. By the time the plane began its descent, the atmosphere was markedly different. What had started as a journey marred by prejudice and tension had transformed into a testament of human resilience and the power of empathy. The passengers, now bound by their collective experiences, felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. As the landing gear touched down and the plane slowed to a gentle stop, Mabel looked around the cabin with a satisfied smile. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" she mused, her eyes meeting those of Karen, who nodded in silent agreement. The journey towards resolution had been challenging, But through understanding, compassion, and a touch of humor, the passengers had navigated the storm together. As they prepared to disembark, there was a palpable sense of unity and the promise of lasting connections forged in the skies. As the plane began its steady descent towards the destination, a calm settled over the cabin. The earlier chaos of the storm had given way to a peaceful tranquility, and passengers found themselves reflecting on the transformative journey they had shared. The atmosphere was markedly different, infused with a newfound sense of unity and mutual respect that had blossomed amidst adversity. Mabel sat beside Eli, who was now peacefully engrossed in a puzzle. His earlier fears were replaced by curiosity and contentment. George, ever the storyteller, had moved to a seat across the aisle, engaging a small group of passengers in a heartfelt conversation about the importance of empathy and understanding. His words resonated deeply, encouraging others to open their hearts and minds to the diverse experiences that each person brought to the table. Sharon, once the embodiment of stern professionalism tinged with prejudice, had undergone a subtle yet profound transformation. Her interactions with passengers had softened, her demeanor now warm and approachable. She moved through the cabin with genuine kindness, assisting passengers with a smile and engaging in light-hearted conversations that bridged gaps she had once felt insurmountable. The change was noticeable, a testament to the power of shared experiences and sincere reflection. Mabel observed Karen with a mixture of hope and understanding. She knew that change was a journey, not a destination, and that Karen's progress was a beacon of possibility. Taking a deep breath, Mabel decided to further bridge the gap between them. She approached Karen with a gentle smile, offering a seat beside her. "Karen," Mabel began softly, "I've been thinking about our conversation earlier. It's clear that we both have our own stories and struggles. Maybe sharing more of them could help us understand each other better." Karen looked up, her eyes reflecting a newfound vulnerability. "I'd like that, Mabel. I really would." As they settled into a comfortable conversation, Eli approached with a playful grin, holding a small toy airplane. "Miss Karen, do you want to play with me?" Karen's face lit up with a genuine smile. "I'd love to, Eli." The simple act of sharing a moment with a child had a profound impact on Karen. She found herself laughing as Eli maneuvered the toy through imaginary skies, the innocence of his joy melting away the remnants of her earlier frustrations. Around them, passengers watched the interaction with warm smiles, inspired by the genuine connections forming before their eyes. George, sensing the positive shift, joined the duo with a twinkle in his eye. "You know, there's something magical about seeing people come together like this. It reminds me of the time I was on a flight where strangers became friends over a shared love of storytelling." Mabel nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. Stories have a way of bringing us closer, don't they? They help us see the humanity in each other. As the plane continued its descent, the conversations among passengers deepened. Groups formed around shared interests and experiences, fostering an environment where differences were celebrated rather than feared. The earlier incident with Eli had sparked a catalyst for meaningful dialogue, transforming potential conflict into opportunities for growth and understanding. Karen, now more at ease, found herself opening up about her own journey. "I've had my own battles with prejudice," she admitted, her voice steady. "It's taken me a long time to realize how my actions affect those around me. Today has been eye-opening in ways I never imagined." Mabel reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Karen's arm, acknowledging that is a brave first step. "We're all here to support each other." Eli, sensing the significance of the moment, looked up with earnest eyes. "We can all be friends, right?" "Absolutely, Eli," Karen replied warmly. "Friends." As the final moments of the flight approached, the cabin was filled with a sense of accomplishment and hope. Passengers exchanged contact information, eager to maintain the connections they had forged. Plans were made to meet up once they reached their respective destinations, ensuring that the bonds formed in the sky would extend beyond the confines of the airplane. George stood up, addressing the cabin with a heartfelt smile. "We've all learned something valuable today. Let's carry this spirit of unity and understanding with us, wherever we go." Mabel nodded in agreement, her eyes meeting Karen's with mutual respect. "Together, we can make a difference, one conversation at a time." As the plane touched down smoothly on the runway, the passengers felt a collective sense of fulfillment. What had begun as a journey fraught with tension and misunderstanding had evolved into a powerful lesson on the importance of empathy, kindness, and the willingness to change. The descent into understanding had not only brought them closer together, but had also ignited a spark of transformation that would continue to burn brightly long after they had disembarked. Eli and Mabel gathered their belongings, sharing a final smile with George and Karen. "Thank you for everything," Mabel said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. Karen nodded, her eyes reflecting genuine remorse and hope. "Thank you for giving me the chance to change." As the passengers exited the plane, they carried with them the memories of a flight that had transcended the ordinary, leaving an indelible mark on their hearts and minds. The journey had been more than just a passage through the skies. It had been a voyage of the soul, guiding each individual towards a path of greater understanding and compassion. The sky had been both a cradle and a crucible for the passengers aboard the airplane. As the engines began their gradual descent, a serene anticipation settled over the cabin. The once turbulent journey had transformed into a voyage of understanding and empathy, leaving an indelible mark on each traveler's heart. Mabel gently squeezed Eli's hand, her eyes reflecting the calm determination that had guided them through the storm. "We're almost there, Eli. Just a little longer," she whispered, her voice steady and reassuring. George, seated across the aisle, leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. He had watched the transformation of the cabin with a mixture of pride and awe. His stories had ignited conversations, and now, witnessing the blossoming connections, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "You know, Mabel," he began, his voice warm, "this flight has been something special. It's not every day you see such genuine transformation in the skies." Mabel nodded, her gaze meeting George's. "It's been a journey of the heart, George, and Eli has been a wonderful catalyst for it all." As the plane began its final descent, the familiar sights of the runway came into view, signaling the end of their airborne odyssey. Passengers glanced out the windows, the ground drawing nearer with each passing moment. The collective experience had woven a tapestry of shared humanity, each thread strengthened by the lessons learned amidst the clouds. Karen, once a symbol of rigidity and prejudice, now moved with a newfound grace. Her interactions with passengers were filled with warmth and genuine kindness, a stark contrast to her earlier demeanor. She approached each seat with a sincere smile, offering assistance and engaging in heartfelt conversations. The transformation was palpable, a testament to the power of empathy and the willingness to change. As the landing gear touched down smoothly on the runway, a collective sigh of relief and accomplishment echoed through the cabin. The passengers applauded softly, acknowledging the crew's efforts in navigating both the literal and metaphorical storms. Karen stood at the front, her posture relaxed, her eyes meeting those of Mabel and George with a silent acknowledgement of her journey towards redemption. Eli, sensing the significance of the moment, turned to Karen with a bright smile. "Thank you, Miss Karen. You're really nice now." Karen knelt to Eli's level, her smile genuine and heartfelt. "Thank you, Eli. You taught me a lot today." Mabel watched the interaction with pride, her heart swelling with hope for the changes unfolding around her. George, always the sage, offered a knowing nod. "Here's to new beginnings and the power of understanding," he toasted softly, raising his glass of water. As the passengers prepared to disembark, conversations flowed freely, filled with laughter and plans to stay connected. The bonds formed in the confined space of the airplane now extended beyond the flight, promising lasting friendships and continued support. Mabel and Eli gathered their belongings, sharing a final smile with George and Karen. "We've made some wonderful friends," Mabel mused, her eyes twinkling with warmth. George chuckled, adjusting his glasses. "Indeed we have. It's been a flight to remember." Karen approached them one last time, her demeanor transformed. "Mabel, Eli, thank you for giving me the chance to change. I'll never forget this experience." Mabel placed a comforting hand on Karen's shoulder. "We all have our journeys, Karen. Today was yours, and I'm glad you embraced it." As the passengers stepped off the plane, the vibrant airport terminal welcomed them with open arms. Friends and family awaited, Eager to hear about the transformative flight, Eli ran into the arms of his relatives, his laughter echoing the joy that had filled the cabin. Mabel watched with a contented smile, knowing that their journey had not only brought them closer but had also sparked meaningful change in the lives of those around them. The plane, now empty and quiet, stood as a silent witness to the powerful stories that had unfolded within its walls. It had been more than just a vessel transporting people from one place to another. It had been a catalyst for unity, understanding, and the enduring belief that change is always possible. As Mabel and Eli walked towards their loved ones, hand in hand, the lessons of the flight lingered in their hearts. They had soared above the clouds, weathered storms of misunderstanding, and touched the lives of strangers in ways that would resonate long after the journey ended. The ground beneath their feet was no longer just the end of a flight, but the beginning of a shared commitment to fostering empathy and embracing the diversity that enriched their lives. The engines hummed their final lullaby as the airplane descended gracefully toward the runway. The once turbulent skies had given way to a tranquil approach, and a sense of accomplishment settled over the cabin. Passengers exchanged knowing glances, each reflecting on the transformative journey they had shared. The bonds formed in the confined space of the airplane were now about to extend into the bustling airport terminal below. As the plane touched down smoothly, a collective sigh of relief and triumph echoed through the cabin. The seatbelt signs flickered off, and the passengers began to loosen their grips, their movements filled with a newfound ease. Applause broke out softly, a spontaneous acknowledgement of the crew's efforts in navigating both the literal and metaphorical storms. Taryn, once a symbol of rigidity and prejudice, stood at the front with a serene smile, her demeanor transformed by the shared experiences. Mabel gently squeezed Eli's hand, her eyes meeting those of George's with a silent exchange of gratitude. "We did it, Eli," she whispered, her voice filled with warmth. Eli beamed up at her, his earlier fears now replaced by a sense of pride and joy. As the passengers prepared to disembark, the atmosphere was charged with a vibrant energy. Conversations flowed freely, filled with laughter, shared stories, and plans to stay connected. The bonds forged in the skies were now extending beyond the confines of the airplane, promising lasting friendships and continued support. George, ever the sage, stood up with a twinkle in his eye and addressed the group with heartfelt sincerity. "You know, folks, what we experienced today is a testament to the incredible power of unity and understanding. We came together in the face of adversity, and together, we found strength and compassion. Let's carry this spirit with us, wherever we go." His words resonated deeply, inspiring nods and appreciative smiles from the passengers. Mabel joined him, her voice steady and filled with conviction. Today wasn't just about reaching a destination. It was about the journey we took together, the lessons we learned, and the connections we made. Let's remember that kindness and empathy can transform even the most challenging situations. As the passengers began to exit the plane, a humorous mishap lightened the mood. A passenger accidentally tripped while retrieving his luggage, only to be caught gracefully by a flight attendant who couldn't help but laugh. "Guess I'm still getting used to these shoes," he joked, eliciting chuckles from those around him. The moment of levity served as a perfect pattern interrupt, easing any lingering tension and reinforcing the sense of camaraderie. Karen approached Eli and Mabel once more, her eyes reflecting genuine remorse and gratitude. "Mabel, Eli, thank you for everything," she said softly. "You've shown me the importance of compassion and understanding. I promise to carry these lessons with me." Mabel smiled warmly, placing a comforting hand on Karen's shoulder. "We all have our journeys, Karen. Today was yours, and I'm glad you embraced it." As the passengers stepped into the arrival hall, they were greeted by friends and family, their faces lighting up with joy and relief. The terminal buzzed with the same vibrant energy as before, but now it was infused with the stories of transformation and unity that had unfolded aboard the flight. Eli ran into the arms of his relatives, his laughter echoing the happiness that had filled the cabin moments earlier. George found himself surrounded by eager listeners, sharing snippets of the flight's remarkable journey. "It was like a small community up there," he mused, his voice rich with emotion. "We faced challenges together and came out stronger because of it." It's a beautiful reminder of what we can achieve when we set aside our differences and support one another. The flight crew gathered near the exit, their faces glowing with pride and satisfaction. They had not only managed a successful flight, but had also facilitated a profound transformation among the passengers. A crew member shared a funny behind-the-scenes story about the flight, eliciting laughter and camaraderie among the team. Their hard work and dedication had not gone unnoticed, earning heartfelt commendations from grateful passengers. Karen lingered for a moment, exchanging smiles and nods with those she had interacted with. Her journey of self-improvement was far from over, but today had marked a significant turning point. Inspired by the support and understanding she had received, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and commitment to fostering empathy in her professional and personal life. Plans began to form among the passengers to organize community events promoting diversity and inclusion. Inspired by their shared experiences, ideas flowed freely, each suggestion met with enthusiastic agreement and creative input. The bonds forged in the skies were now translating into proactive efforts to build a more understanding and unified society. As the day progressed, the arrival hall became a tapestry of stories and connections. Passengers shared their favorite moments from the flight, from Eli's playful antics to the heartfelt conversations that had sparked profound changes. The laughter and joy that filled the terminal were a testament to the incredible journey they had undertaken together. In a quiet corner, Mabel and George shared a final conversation, their hearts full with the lessons learned and the friendships formed. "We've made a difference today, George," Mabel said softly, her eyes reflecting the depth of her gratitude. "Not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us." George nodded, a satisfied smile gracing his lips. "Indeed, Mabel, it's been a flight to remember, a true testament to the power of unity and compassion." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the bustling airport, the passengers parted ways with promises to stay connected and continue fostering the spirit of understanding they had discovered together. The journey had been more than just a flight. It had been a powerful lesson in the importance of empathy, kindness, and the enduring belief that change is always possible. Eli and Mabel walked hand in hand toward their loved ones, their hearts filled with the joy of the day's experiences. They had soared above the clouds, navigated storms of misunderstanding, and touched the lives of strangers in ways that would resonate long after the plane had landed. The ground beneath their feet was no longer just the end of a flight, but the beginning of a shared commitment to fostering empathy and embracing the diversity that enriched their lives.